So Brian, listen, great to see you today. And I've been really excited to get to this point where we can actually now start talking about the partnership. So I just want to say a massive thank you to you and all of your technical team who've made this possible.
Well, delighted, and you will see as much as I do in the prop tech world. There's 1,000,001 ideas coming to the table. There's not very many of them that you get excited about these days, because they either sound brilliant and don't get delivered well. But I'm really looking forward to this integration that we put in place. I think it's going to be, it's going to be really good. I think it'll be very popular.
Because the thing is that what I think Acaboom does so brilliantly is it allows listers to offer a consistent, informative solution before the appointment, on the appointment, after the appointment. And since we've been working with flexible fees and delivering this to customers, the big frustration has been is that we're having to send customers like 2 or 3 different things. And that's just, it's not a great client experience, is it?
No, it's not. I quite possibly have said this to you before, but the reason Acaboom started was I used to be an agent. I was on the receiving end one day when not an agent anymore of 3 valuers doing pitches, and they were just all the same, and just nothing about them was wowy. Acaboom is all about, it's really a wrapper. So all of the good reasons to instruct your firm, whoever your firm is, are wrapped up inside Acaboom. And really, Fee Slider fits so well into that. If an agent is going through their pitch, telling the story and saying something along the lines of, you probably think all the agents are the same out there, they're just not. Let me tell you why we're different. And they take them through that story. And it's not only in the verbal world, is it? Nowadays, it's in the visual world. They don't have to go in and out of different, as you say, don't have to go in and out of different solutions or tools to get things across. They should be able to answer any question that's put to them, that at some point in the conversation, the homeowner's probably going to say, and what about fees? And that's where, I think that's where Fee Slider steps up, isn't it, and does its thing.
Absolutely. Because actually, when I think back to when we first set up Greenhouse, Acaboom was, if not the first, it was literally one of the first integrations that we put in place. And that's because, if I could only pick one system to absolutely nail, it's the listing process.
Yeah, I remember back in the days when I was an agent, how much effort used to go into selling properties. Negotiators, it almost seemed like 70 or 80% of the day was selling the property or doing that stuff. And I remember thinking, if people turned that upside down and spent 70 or 80% of the time on new business, you can't sell what you haven't got. So you should be putting absolutely everything into the listing process, whether that's generating the lead, to then try and get it in the diary, and having got it in the diary, to start waving a flag. You don't wave flags loudly, do you? But shouting from the hilltops and waving a flag at the same time. You should be doing it before the appointment, and basically walking through the front door with a bit of an advantage already in your back pocket, whatever that's going to be.
Yeah, because one of the things I sort of wonder about quite a lot at the moment is there is a huge amount of new technology which is being released in the form of AI, isn't there? And we've got all of these tools which didn't exist even 6 months ago, which we didn't have ready access to. How do you think estate agency leaders should approach these new technologies which are coming in? And how do you square that off with offering a personal service on one hand and then having tech to support it on the other? How do you think about that?
I know how I think about it. That the tech should be solving a problem first and foremost. So what is the problem and how can tech come along and solve it? I think there's lots of wonderful ideas out there. If I go back to Metropix days, we had a wonderful idea of converting 2D floor plans into 3D visualizations that would start, the video started in Mars, came down into Earth, zoomed in on the UK, into London. But, frankly, it wasn't solving a problem. It was just nice. That was the 3D visualization thing back then. I think when I see tools coming out today, if they are solving a problem, then it resonates. And I think, take Fee Slider, for example. Let's just talk about that for a moment. There is a problem there because for a very long time now, I think homeowners have been expecting more choice. We've been used to more personalisation and things that land with us, however they might land.
Yeah.
Estate agency fees have for a very long time been quite rigid. It's either 1.5%, 1.25%, one, it's that or nothing, really,
Yeah.
isn't it? And I think by introducing something that is interactive and allows a home, and as soon as I saw it, I remember thinking, crikey, why has nobody done this before? Why is Ian Preston the first to build the obvious on reflection? But you have. But it's just, if I was a valuer again and somebody said, look, Joe Blogg's down the road is doing it cheaper, can you do it cheaper? I'm not, you're going to sell it far better than I am, but I would just like the idea of saying, look, let's show you how we can get a fee to meet your needs exactly. Just move the slider across and you decide what suits you best. I mean, that's number one. Number two is it's interactive. So it's not somebody just listening to a valuer throwing words across the table. It's the homeowner is actually interacting with something on the device, whether it's with the valuer on a tablet or a phone or however they're doing it at the property, or it's sent through by the integration as part of the proposal that's going through afterwards, that's telling the agency story, why to instruct them, what they do differently, evidence basing all of the claims that they're making about being better and actually getting that across. And then they get to the fees and they think, well, okay, where do I want to be? I really like this company. I'm comfortable paying a bigger setup to get a discount down the road. I think, that's probably the world that we're in. So to answer your question, if it's solving a problem, then it's a good piece of tech. I think too many things out there are just bloody good ideas, but actually they're not solving a problem. And then it's questionable whether they're going to land positively commercially.
Yeah, such a good point. I once heard it described that a lot of prop tech is a solution in search of a problem, if that makes sense, rather than the other way around, which I think might be a bit unfair, but it sort of makes the point. And certainly the way that we think about the world that estate agency business owners are now moving into is that we think about it in the terms of high skill, high tech. So effectively that you need incredibly good people who are brilliant at the moments that matter, the emotional connection with the customer, the helping someone who's worried about their sale falling through, offering reassurance to a customer whose property hasn't sold. And I honestly don't see those changing radically from the way that we do it today in terms of face-to-face, in terms of phone conversations with people to offer them that reassurance and comfort. Whereas what we need is the tools which are now being delivered to free up time to enable us to spend more time doing those high value activities. And what's great about the partnership between us is that I think this is something which is going to allow agents in the home to make more of those high skill moments, the ultimate high skill moment of the undertaking of the valuation. Cool. We sort of chatted briefly, didn't we, about the concept of flexible fees. And I'm sure that there'll be a ton of people who have got literally no idea what we're talking about. So it's probably worth touching on that. And that's that flexible fees are basically where you give the consumer a choice about how they pay the bill. They could pay nothing up front, which is the way that we've always done it. They could pay something up front, or they could pay everything up front, and that the price adjusts accordingly based on the option they choose. And I don't think this product would have been appropriate if we went back to the early 2000s, because we had a third of sales completing from your pipeline every month, so a 32% pipeline turn. So it didn't make any sense. But now, I mean, it's changed completely, hasn't it, in terms of fall throughs, in terms of the length of time it takes to go through. It's just a different world.
But I think I'm right in saying estate agency fees are on the decline as a percentage and one of the lowest in Europe. I think we move more often, but they shouldn't be, should they? If the services are getting better, people should be able to. I think that's an agent's biggest challenge is walking through the front door and knowing that competitor 1, 2, or 3 are either going to be overpricing, so they've got to show the homeowner that the figure that they're giving is the right figure, but they also want to protect their own fees, and they don't want to just win the instruction on the basis of Joe Blogs down the road says you'll do it for 1%, will you? And when we started looking at this integration, when you and I spoke, and then I went away to the teams one of our sales team used to be an estate agent, and she used to use flexible fees. And she said, this is a no-brainer, Brian. She said, I've used it. Our average fee per office, the average fee that they were getting, was higher as a result of using this. So it's not just a good idea, but it sounds like it's out there. It's already proving its worth. I'm presuming she's not the only person on the planet Earth that's saying positive things about it. You've probably heard these stories from others, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, so when we've run the numbers, I mean, I was with a client in Cambridge, I don't know, maybe a month ago. I'm heading back there tonight, actually, so I'll be heading back to Cambridge. But we looked at his average revenue per listing. And one of the concepts I'd encourage agents to think about is to take all of the money you bring in, and rather than dividing it by your number of exchanges, divide it by your number of listings. So effectively, if you brought in £100,000 and you listed 100 properties, your revenue per listing is £1,000 per property. If that makes sense. And what I like about that measure, whereas if I asked an average estate agent who did say 50 completions, the same question, they tell me that their average fee was £2,000, whereas their average revenue per listing might only be £1,000, because the average agent is not selling half of the homes that they bring to market, because it's currently 52%. So when you think about that, and you then look at the impact on revenue per listing of taking some of the money up front, that increases an agent's revenue by 21%. Now, so an agent with a magic wand dropping flexible fees in increases revenue by 21%. Now, what's the average profit margin of the average estate agent out there? And I reckon it's less than 20%. Now, let's imagine it is 20% to keep the math super simple. If you increase revenue by 20% on a 20% margin business, you double profits. And the other thing is that let's imagine that I do take a new piece of prop tech, some fancy new bit of kit. How long is it on a no sale, no fee model before I see any return on that investment? 9 months? 12 months? Whereas with flexible fees, you literally see it the next month. So that money, because you then suddenly start taking revenue up front, the average agent per branch makes £10,000 per office per month on flexible fees.
Is that additional revenue?
So the answer is it's complicated, but for the first 5 months, it's completely additional revenue. So whatever you take for the first 5 months, and then what we'd expect to see is that the aggregate revenue, so your upfront fees plus your completion fees, increases by about 17 to 21%. It's in that sort of range for the average agent. So that is new revenue. There is a small reduction in the amount of money which you get on completions, which is then offset by the amount of money which you're taking up front. But also the other thing to bear in mind is that when I first implemented this, I got my maths wrong, and it cost me £250,000 of lost revenue by effectively over discounting. And again, I could explain sort of why that happened, but the lessons we've learned from that mean that we have a really specific formula for estate agents to follow when they implement this. So we literally put their numbers into a spreadsheet and it spits out what they need to charge at every price point, and that is fed into the flexible fees app, and that leads to this 17 to 21% increase in revenue.
So now that homeowners, I'll start from the beginning. Historically, it's been no sale, no fee, and let's call it 1.5%. Mm-hmm. And in the top end markets, they I think for a long time have had marketing fees on top of that of 10, 20, 30 grand. I think I've heard numbers off for the bigger houses. There's always been an inclination amongst the agencies to, oh no, I don't fancy that. That means getting money out of them. But now that the decision for the homeowner to pay money up front has suddenly been put in their control, they decide whether they want to pay money up front. How many of them are paying money up front? So if I'm an agent and I suddenly start using this, is it 1%, 5%, 10% of people that say, I will pay something up front?
It's a great question. And the answer is, it depends. So I'll give you the numbers for Preston Baker, because that's probably, it's a mature business which has been doing it for 4 years. So we have 83% of our customers who choose to pay something or everything up front. So when presented with the choice, and one important detail for people is that the high fee is 20% more expensive than paying something up front. So effectively, let's imagine that you're at 1.5%, no sale, no fee will be 1.8%, and paying something up front would allow you to access 1.5%, and paying everything up front would allow you to access 1.2%. So there's a 40% spread between paying everything up front and paying nothing up front. And when presented with that choice, 80% of customers choose to pay something up front. And that is,
but that isn't that amazing that we all, and I put myself in the same camp, I don't think I would have been brave enough as an agent to walk through the front door when everybody else is doing no sale, no fee. I'd be the one that turned around and said, you need to pay £500 up front. And it just seems like such a no-brainer to let the homeowner, if they don't want it, they don't want it, but 80% of them do. So we all got it so wrong. We just hadn't. I've often heard people turn around and say, it's not the idea that's clever, it's the implementation. That's what makes the difference. The world's full of ideas. It's just not full of enough people putting something in place that allows the implementation to be successful. Yeah. And I think from what I've seen of the fee slider, we're going to encourage, there's no commercial gain between either of us here. So let's just make that clear. Yeah. But it's very visual, it's interactive, it fits into the story, the presentation, the proposal that goes out afterwards. It just is so slick in the way that a homeowner can go through this with the agent or afterwards with any other decision makers that were not present during the market appraisal. I'm really looking forward to this. I think more than we've all done all the others, but this is a new one that I think you can get excited about, that people are going to like. And we've already got mutual clients asking for it.
We do. I mean, like literally, I've got people clamoring for this product to be integrated as part of Acaboom, and like literally 6, 7, 8, 9 clients who are mutual clients of ours are all absolutely screaming for this. So yeah, I'm really excited about it as well. And one of the things I think about is that, name another industry which works on no sale, no fee.
Well, you've thought about this longer than me.
I cheated. I've asked the question loads of times, Brad. But one of the industries I can think of is personal injury lawyers. Yeah, like slips and trips type stuff. But the question which I pose to people is this: imagine that you you'd signed up to a no-win, no legal fee claim. You were bringing a claim against your employer because you'd slipped down the stairs, God forbid. And you got to the day before you were due in court, and you decided that you couldn't go through with the action. Do you think there'd be something in that personal injury lawyer's contract, which had signed up to no win, no fee, that if you pulled out, that you would have to pay something? And I suspect there probably would be. And so, if I called my accountant the day before my tax return was due and said, hey, Fred, I'm really sorry, but I don't need you to complete my tax return, do you think they'd bill me? Yes. Do you think if I called my lawyer the day before a contract, which they've been drafting for me, was due to be delivered, and I said, don't do it, would there be a bill? So the reason that 83% of customers, when presented with this choice, actually pick to pay something or everything up front is because customers are in a totally different headspace to us in terms of how they think about this. Because their life experience is that if you instruct someone to do a job and you decide that you're not going to go ahead with it, there's going to be a cost attached to that. They all understand it. It's not so weird. Whereas for us as agents, we've been pitching no sale, no fee for 20 plus years. And it just, we assume that customers are going to go, oh my God, I'm not doing that.
We've sold it to ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not right. But you're right. I don't know why in what other, and it just seems fair. If somebody does the work, they should be paid for the work. And I think if you sat there and said to a homeowner, if you're serious about selling and you want me to go out and work morning, noon and night, 24/7, because I'll be thinking about you a lot, then, if I'm successful, I should be rewarded for it, but at least pay me for, at baseline, at worst, for the work that I do for you.
Exactly. And we've just seen this time and time again, that consumers don't have a challenge with it, whereas the agents do, and the training which I deliver to agents, and I've delivered this training course, I hate to think how many times I've delivered it now as I've traveled around the country. This afternoon I mentioned I'm going to Cambridge, I'm then in London, and then back to York on Thursday, and then in Cardiff on Friday, and I'm then heading off to Chester after that. And I would say that 40 to 50% of my time now is spent talking to agents about this. Fundamentally, the training which I do is mindset training for the agents.
A lot of them are old school, aren't they? Aren't we all? You know?
Yes.
And why is it that we are so intent on holding on to old ideas? So I'm thinking of sending PDFs out after an appointment. I remember, I don't know if you're old enough, but I had 1 to 31 follow-up systems.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
And every morning I would take out 20 follow-ups because there were 20 to be done. I'd probably phone half of them at best. I'd probably get through to 20% of them at best, which basically means going into Tuesday, you've now got 17 follow-ups to do on top of another 20 new ones. And it's just all wrong. It was never productive, that way of doing things. And there's now tools out there, Acaboom offers one, which is identifying who is about to instruct based on behavior. We're using AI for that. But and that is going down well, but tools like Fee Slider, for example, there's probably some people that say, no, we're old school, we just prefer it our way. But do you find that on the road?
Yeah, I mean, listen, in every group, there's basically 3 clusters. So, I've done groups as big as 75 agents in one room, and I've done groups as small as like 7 or 10. Yeah. And in every single group, there's I really like this. I can see this working great. It's going to give me something new to talk about. There's I'm worried about this, but I can see how it would work. And then there's this is never going to work in insert place name. Yeah. And, I have all 3s. And obviously, often those groups are of different proportions, dependent on where I am. But I always have those 3 groups. And the truth is that the person who is, like, there's a great phrase, I can't remember who said it, but effectively it's like there are 2 types of people in this world: those who think they can and those who think they can't, and they're both probably right. So if you believe that flexible fees will never work, well, guess what? They ain't going to work in your patch, because you're going to make sure, like, either deliberately or just by virtue of your mindset, that it's not going to work. And then equally, if you believe that's a great thing. I'll give you one example. A mutual client of ours, Sears and Duncan Yeardley, one of their agents did £40,000 of upfront fees in 1 month in one branch.
Really?
Like 40 grand. And so I've known people do that in 20 grand. I have one agent who's a self-employed agent, and from 6 listings in her very first month of listing, she'd never listed a house before in her life, she did £12,000 of upfront fees from 6 listings. And that's because she'd never listed a house before. So when we said, hey, this is how you do it, she was like, well, that's great. Everyone's going to want to save the max amount of money. She went out and sold 6 full upfront fees. 100%, because she didn't know any different. She didn't know that customers would object to that. She didn't know that customers wouldn't want to pay anything up front, because she had no expectations. And it just goes to show you that the agents who believe that this is a good idea, it's a great idea. The agents who believe it's a terrible idea, it's a terrible idea. And ultimately, that's why my training focuses on the mindset. And I've just completed a series with Zoopla, which was released on Friday just gone. We're recording on the 18th of May. And it's a masterclass series where I talk to people about how do you win listings, and why do you win some and why do you not win them. And for any Zoopla members, they can sign up and they can get access to six lessons which I recorded with them. And there'll also be some flexible fee training on there appearing in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I don't think in estate agents there's been enough of that focus on the market appraisal. So when I was running offices back in the day, I never knew what a valuer was going out saying or doing, because you can't accompany them all. And you must see this across, you're closer to it than I am. But the secret, at least the good agents that are doing really well, that are getting the best fees out there, are almost certainly sitting down as a business and identifying what they do differently to their competitors that they do well, then articulating that and evidence basing it, and getting all of the valuers to be aware we're all singing from the same pipe. If somebody says, why should I instruct you, then there are these 5, 6, 7 points that you can mention, and getting those across. But the other thing that I've seen is when an agent is pitching, and I use the word pitching, it's not used very often in a state agency, but you are in a beauty parade when you're up against 1, 2, 3 other agents, and you are communicating the reasons to instruct you, trying to instill confidence, using data to get that across. Whatever you say to the homeowner in the property, statistically speaking, people only remember 90% of what you say after. Will forget 90%.
I'm going to challenge that. Yes.
You might know this statistic then, but they only remember 10% of what they hear. We all only remember 10% of what we hear after 72 hours. Statistically speaking, that goes up to 65% when you use visuals. If you've got a fee slider, or you've got a we get better prices slide, or you've got, our marketing is superior for these reasons, and you're showing it visually, the homeowner's probably not making a decision at that moment in time. They're almost certainly making the decision in the days or the weeks afterwards. There was some data from one of the CRMs 5+ years ago, and I remember they looked at 350,000 market appraisals. Only 7% of them came on the same day. 68% came on in the following 4 weeks. So you can imagine how much is forgotten in the coming 30 days. And if you haven't got something on the table for people to play with, a fee slider, or a video to watch, or a proposal to look at and digest with partners, you're on the back foot. You could be the best valuer in the world and able to get your key messages across, but they're going to forget them after a period of time unless there's something for them to refer back to. And that goes back to the day when I was having my 3 valuations looking to sell my property. That's exactly what happened to me. I forgot after 3 days who said what, who looked like what, which agent was which, and so on.
Yeah, it's super tough, isn't it? Brian, listen, thank you so much for taking the time to have a conversation with me today. And I just want to thank you and the Acaboom team for making this integration possible. It's been, you've been a great partner to work with, and I hope that it's going to help agents make more money and win more instructions. So really appreciate it.
It's going to be a win for each one of us, but more importantly, it's going to be a win for the clients. I think they're going to love it.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Ian.